often in anthroposophy, or people working in out of Steiner's ideas are not able to make real in the world. And what you've been able to do is to really, I know it's not in the mainstream, but you've met the mainstream. You've obviously garnered funds and government support and things like that. How have you done that, and why aren't more anthroposophical initiatives able to do that? Just questions around that I have.
So it's tricky to answer that. So I use the word spiritual science regularly, and I see it as a skill. And so I turn what might be considered an insight or a philosophy into a skill. And I'm interested in conveying skills to people. And, you know, in a way, at the heart of the philosophy of freedom is the ability to become skillful within oneself, to take oneself in hand, and in doing so, help the world. So if you actually look at another aspect of the philosophy of Ruskin, the craft product is a very important item, both to get there, but also for it to be of value to others. So the self has to be in a relationship to the social imperative, which is actually, I don't do this for myself, I do it for my colleagues and the world at large. And when you put that as your primary objective, then this translation from spiritual science into skills of capacity to gain one's own individual autonomy and purpose and task, and for it to become clear, and then to endow those and then to take those skills and endowment and task into the world so that others benefit, is in a way my summary of why I do what I do. Now, I'm very passionate about Steiner, actually, and I feel very committed to making sure that Steiner's gifts are actually researched and not owned individually, but are actually for the distribution into further skill development in the world. And so my entrepreneurship is partly motivated to do outreach with a set of tools that are incredibly effective and transform. And so my motivation comes to that. Now, why are others not maybe so motivated? Well, I think they can. I have some colleagues who are trapped in the philosophy as opposed to the skill of what's endowed by practicing spiritual science, put it that way. And therefore, if you don't go out and have things checked and in a way subject to rigor, you can fall back into a comfort zone of self-projection. And I'm going to say something challenging here. One of the interesting things about Ruskin's growth is that it has been in part on the gifts of failed anthroposophic initiatives in which this self-rigor did not come to the fore. And what often happens is that buildings are sold, or there's a kind of self-expectation that you have a kind of righteousness to spend the money, because that's actually what spiritual science should be doing, providing courses for the public, but the public don't turn up. And then there's no money. And then I get a phone call. And this has happened probably on half a dozen times. And so my analysis is not a good one, really, for the society at large, because it does show a certain degree of complacency. But the complacency is now becoming more common, because I don't think, and Steiner said it himself, that the power of spiritual science will dwindle unless it's researched. And I'm interested in this flickering of spiritual science if it's not researched. And so my challenge would be, find the research modality that is best suited for spiritual science, which in my view is collaborative action research. It's already practiced, but it's not understood to be such a wonderful tool as it is, and go from projection and opinion to insight. And when you move from opinion into insight, something happens.
Very interesting. Steiner himself, in a sense, you could say, I think, was much more interested in the method itself rather than just the knowledge, if you like.
Yeah.
So one way to put that is that
that's nice.
He's often read, and I'm guilty of this myself, we read him for the knowledge, for these concepts and ideas. But actually, I think it was Christopher Bamford wrote in one of the introductions that actually almost everything he said, or maybe 2/3 of what he said, could be content for meditation, and not just as facts, like scientific facts, but the methodology is actually where it's at. and as you say, then research, because it is, as we say, spiritual science.
So it's got to translate into skill. And what's important in England is, my people ask me, well, does it work, Angus? I'm not asked, is it a good idea? Yeah, nobody's really interested in the idea. Does it work? Is it, in a way, it's a very scientific response. Show me that it works. And how do you do that? Well, you need data. And England's a country of science. And if you work with even the most rudiment scientific principles, like collecting information and collecting results, people actually like you. And the growth of Ruskin is entirely based on getting results. It's a very result-based organization, and it's it does have a kind of production line as well, and we have more applicants than we could ever work with. In our new school on the campus of Emerson, Ashdown Garden School, we're getting 20 inquiries a day. 20. And we can only start with 20, and this has been going on for months. And the crisis in education is so much more severe than the public are led to believe. Because when you set up a special school, you begin to see the underbelly of the significant neglect that England is turning its back on. And how does it turn its back on is really a shocking situation. So find a method, check it, develop skills, and solve a problem in the world. And the other thing that Ruskin does is to ask the question, not what I want to do, but what does the world require? And so part of the entrepreneurial spirit is to ask, so what does it require? And we will do what's required, not always what we want to do. And that actually is quite a challenging situation, because very often people only do what they want to do. And then they don't always know why. Maybe they don't make a proper living, or they haven't grown, or people aren't really interested in what they've got to offer. So the thing about spiritual science is that it can be applied to any single detail. There is nothing it can't be applied to. And so if you put it into what the world requires, then you have spiritual science working into the bedrock of the kind of national psyche and the constitution.
Wonderful. That's a great way to put it. And I think that, you know, with Steiner's path or paths of spirituality, it's so much about drawing down the spirit, if you like, or spiritualizing ourselves and spiritualizing the earth, bringing the spirit to the earth, rather than a kind of an escape from the earth, which some spiritual paths can lead to. But I think, Angus, that's probably a good place for us to finish. I would love to have another conversation in the future if you have the time and would be interested. But I just want to say thank you very much for joining me today.